Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's good to be back with everybody. Thanks for your attention. I'm continuing on with my Retrievals of the Third Kind presentation here. And what I've done for everyone tonight is I've provided some new full color illustrations. I thought it was justified because these are cases that I've covered before, but this time I've added some full color illustrations to make this even further come alive to preserve our history. And so that is the goal for today. So let's continue with the next slide here. A couple of quick announcements. First of all, I never claimed to be an expert in AI image generation. I'm just doing the best I can using Chrome AI. So I want to put that up front. I am not an AI image generation expert here. I'm just doing the best I can with what I have. And hopefully we can make some of these cases come alive here. And I want to start by also once again referencing this book by Leonard Stringfield, UFO Crash Retrievals, The Complete Investigation Status Reports 1 through 7 by Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. So he really gets credit for coining the term UFO crash retrievals. Over a period of 30 years, he collected multiple firsthand military witnesses who had held the bodies, who had loaded the craft onto 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks, who were involved in the pathology reports associated with autopsies. They were also involved in the X-ray lab technician. So these are the caliber of people that Leonard had dealt with. So certainly want to give him credit. Now, pretty much all of the cases that we're going to be talking about tonight come from this book. I want to reference this. So if you're someone that has an interest in this subject, if you're passionate about crash retrievals, I highly recommend getting a copy of this book. It's about 1.5 inches thick. It's fully packed with firsthand military accounts of crash retrievals and bodies. And so, again, if this is something that you're interested in, definitely check this book out. It's up on Amazon right now. So let's go ahead and dive in here. And this is most of these cases we've covered before, but I've added new illustrations to kind of make them come alive here. So this is UFO crash retrieval, 1942, long before Roswell. According to Leonard, this craft is still held at an Army base somewhere north of Georgia. He didn't even know where this thing was. Reference for this is page 319 in his book. Now, this craft measured about 15 feet wide. It was 10 feet tall. It had 3 levels on it. So upper level basically had this control panel with buttons and switches. That was level number 1. Level number 2 had what looked like 4 bar stools that were parked in back of a wraparound window. That was level number 2. Level number 3 had an entryway hatch. Okay. Now, I also want to mention that there were markings seen on the inside of the craft. That's been talked about with multiple different crash retrieval cases. And then there was what looked like hieroglyphic type writings or markings wrapped around the outer circumference of the lower portion of the craft itself. There were 4 crew members taken alive. 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, large black eyes, milky white skin. So that's the briefing here on this case from page 319. I'm going to go to the next slide. This is a blow up now showing you these symbols. So, I always thought there has to be a united coalition of engineers, linguistic experts trying to decipher, trying to decode these symbols. And there has to be a huge bound volume of all the different symbols that they've compiled. There must be some type of bound volume. So if we take all the information from the 2-page report in Leonard's book, and we use Rudy's drawing as a guide, I came up with this full color rendering just to give us an idea of what this thing may have looked like if we were there. Now, when this thing came down in 1942, it hit the side of the Army facility. And so it tore a hole breach on the side of the craft. And so you can see some shrapnel, you can see some skin peeled back. That's what was described in the report. Now I want to go to everybody on our stream here. Roger Murray, hello. Alex, when is the next AI drawing contest? That's a good question. That's a very good question. I will do another drawing contest. Renee Cruz, Roger, Yippee, good. Roger Murray, Alex, Flubber Lane, doing great. Hope you too. Thank you, Flubberlang. Good to be with you. Okay, so that's case number one. That's case number one. Let's continue here. We're not going to stop here. I'm going to keep on going with these things. All right, let's continue. This is another one that we talked about before. Naval Air Station, Sunnyvale, California, 1950. It's called Hangar 1. If you're driving north of the freeway, you're going to see this hangar on the right-hand side. Now, a couple things to mention. Number one, that hangar still exists. Number two, that hangar is so large. Repeat, this hangar is so large, it has its own weather inside. That's how big this thing. During World War II, it's used for Navy blimps to be stored inside. So you can get an idea just how large this thing is. Our source is a radar operator, and he accidentally entered a door into this large hangar. This is case B5 in Leonard's book, page 57. So again, if you want to follow along, this is where you want to go. So he walks into this door, leads him into this big hangar. What did he see? Let's go to Rudy's drawing. About a 100-foot diameter dish-shaped craft just sitting on the hangar floor. Now, there was a guard who challenged him, told him to get out of here. He slammed the door back, but he did get to see this large craft. It had a low-rise dome on top. There was a series of circular portholes wrapped around the outer circumference, kind of near the bottom of the low-rise dome. Now, when he came back, he told his mother the following, quote, "It was certainly no aircraft of ours. So let's take this as a guide. We'll go to the full color rendering. And now we came up with this by Evan, who did a good job on this one. So just again, preserving an important part of our national history. And as we go through these cases, we've got craft over here. We've got craft over here. We've got craft at Hangar 1. We've got craft at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Other craft were seen at MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa, Edwards North Base Complex. I mean, it's undeniable at this point. They are hiding this from the American public and the world. There's way too much smoke for there not to be fire. That's what we're looking at here. Let's continue on. Now, Statesville Record and Landmark, July 28th, 1952. New appearance of flying saucers over Capitol is alarming. Now, we've all heard about this overflight of the Capitol building. These are just some of the newspaper clippings. I'm going to continue on here. And we've talked about this before. During the early 1950s, there absolutely was a standing order by the Air Force to our pilots to shoot these things down. Like they were desperate to try to shoot these things down. So this is Cincinnati Enquirer, July 29th, 1952. Shoot saucers down. Jet pilots so ordered in 24-hour alert. Let's go on to the next slide here. A couple other newspaper clippings. Jets keeping 24-hour alert for saucers. Pilots ordered to down objects if they don't land. On the saucer trail, pilots told shoot them down. Jets on 24-hour alert to shoot down saucers. Okay. What type of aircraft were they using? This one right here, the F-94 Starfire, was used to these attempted intercepts of these dish-shaped craft. So let's go over here. And if you want to look at these aircraft up close, there's two places you can do it. Number one, Pima Air and Space Museum, Tucson, Arizona. You'll notice here on the left-hand side, it's got the rocket flaps in the closed position. If you go to the Midwest in Dayton, Ohio at the Air Force Museum, you'll see the same model aircraft in the display area here with the rocket flaps in the extended position where they're retracted. And you can actually see the tubes where they loaded these rockets. So we have the flaps retracted in this position. So these are two places where you can actually see these aircraft. So this is Rudy's drawing about one of these intercepts. And I thought, let's see if we can do an AI generated image just to kind of get an idea what this might look like in flight back in 1952. And so here's what I came up with just to give you an idea of what this may have looked like. Now, this went on and on and on during the 1950s, so much so, I'm going to go to the next slide. This became a serious issue. We lost multiple planes. We lost multiple pilots. It's a fact. In fact, it was so profound that Frank Ficino, who's a good friend of mine, he wrote this book, Shoot Them Down, The Flying Saucer Air Wars of 1952. He goes into the Air Force records and he documents the loss of planes and pilots. This absolutely did go on. The Air Force doesn't want to talk about this, but it's a fact that this actually did take place. And this is Frank's book that talks about this. Let's go on here. ME, of course, it's all speculation, but there are definitely something at the FTD building there. So yes, Foreign Technology Division. Yes, it's actually more than speculation because we've got military witnesses coming forward to us, pilots, engineers, people who worked at the Aeromedical Lab. Credible sources are telling us that disc-shaped craft have been seen at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I like the drawings. Flubber Lane. Okay. His Highness. Now we have the technology. Yeah. C. Drake. Mike, you're my favorite researcher. Thank you. We'll do what we can. We do what we can. Renee Cruz. Wow. Awesome drawing and illustrations of that UFO and fighter jet pilot. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll do the best we can. I'm never claiming that this is perfect, but we've got to attach visual aids to this thing so that we can kind of see what this is all about. Let's go on here. All right, next one, page 212, 213 in the book. This is a former military officer. Now, he had the correct security clearance to get access to a classified military's library at an unknown U.S. Air Force base. So he's got the correct security clearances. He's kind of going through these file cabinets. He opens up one of these file cabinets. He lifts out the manila folder, starts looking through it. And what did he see? This is what it said. It talked about a UFO that came down in Farmington, New Mexico prior to 1950, probably 1948 timeframe. Now, the file contained a couple things. Number one, a report. Number two, a black and white photograph. That was also in there. Now, the report said that this was a 36-foot diameter disc-shaped craft. There was a pencil-sized hole in one of these porthole windows. So this thing had a low-rise dome. There were porthole windows wrapped around the outer circumference. And in one of these windows, there was a very small hole in the window. Now, I want to go to the next slide here. And this is what I came up with to the best of my ability of what this man perhaps actually saw at a classified materials library. Let's continue on here. The Pentagon, 1952, off-limits room, Pentagon office worker, UFO crash retrievals, Leonard's book, page 152, case A1. So we've got this office worker. She kind of goes down into the basement. She goes through this off-limits room, and now she's in this dark, dingy room. There's a cardboard box stacked up here. It's poorly lit. She kind of turns to the right. What did she see to her shock and surprise? A pickle alien in a glass jar. Believe it or not. Unbelievable, right? She's shocked. She's shocked. Within 10 seconds, she feels the hand of a military guard on her shoulder and arm, escorting her to get out of here immediately. She's not supposed to be in here. Now, when you read the report within Leonard's book, you're going to say, yeah, this is legitimate. You can kind of just tell the demeanor of these people just by what they're writing within the testimony. So you can kind of gauge their authenticity here. So I spent a lot of time going through this, and I took AI to the absolute bleeding edge of where it would go. You'll never get perfection, but I want to hit you with the full color illustration. And this is what I came up with this shock office worker at the Pentagon who saw this pickle alien in a glass jar. Wow. Fat Frank, $65. Wow. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I mean, I'm going to reinvest all of it right back into the artwork, right back into the research. Thank you very much. That's incredible. Roger Murray, JH Music and Film Festival. Okay, good. So this is what I came up with here. You can see the guard. He's apprehending the office worker. You can see her shock on her face, and this is what's going on. This is what's being seen in these underground facilities. Now, here's the question. Do they really have a vault basement at the Pentagon? Is there really such a facility? Well, let's go to the next slide here. And wouldn't you like to know it? Our good old friend Dick Cheney, right? Dick Cheney, former Secretary of Defense, former presidential candidate here. Peninsula Times Tribune, March 25th, 1989. New defense chief gets lost in the Pentagon basement. So in this report, it talks about how he entered the elevator. He was trying to get to his car. The elevator drops down, thinking that he's going to get to his car. Door opens up. He walks out. He's in the basement. He got lost. Believe it or not, this man got lost. So yes, indeed, in point of fact, there is a basement at the Pentagon. Who knows what they have stored down there? They could store anything down there. There are rumors that craft have been stored down there. And of course, according to this office worker, most likely there was a body there too, probably multiple. So let's continue on here. Dutton, Montana, 1953. This is a civilian. Name is Cecil Tenney, page 16, abstract 11 in the book. So again, if anyone wants to follow along, that's where you can get the information from. Let me go to the next slide here. So driving down the road, he's in his pickup truck. He's facing us in this drawing by Rudy here. He looks up. He sees this large cigar-shaped craft tipped up at a 45-degree angle. It's belching out fire and smoke. The oncoming traffic, he notices that has their tailpipes caught on fire. I mean, this is bizarre. He's thinking, you know what? I'm going to get out of here. Let's get out of this place. So he drives down the road another 2 miles. He pulls off. He gets out of his truck. He files a report of what he just saw at the local bar where he pulled off. So he files this report with the bar owner. The second that he walks into the bar, the owner told him, quote, "You smell like lightning." I thought that was interesting. So he files the report, gets back in his pickup truck. He drives home. 5 minutes later, a police officer ends up going to the exact same bar, and he files an almost identical report that Cecil Tenney just filed. So the bar owner tells him, you know, someone just came in here about 5 minutes earlier than you and filed the exact same report. Well, somehow word got back to the base commander at Great Falls Air Force Base. And that night, the primary eyewitness got a call on the phone. And you can see Rudy's blow-up drawing on the upper right here. It was from the base commander. And the base commander said, "I want to see you." City L, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So this base commander says, "I want to see you." He was told to visit the base commander the next morning. So he got there the next morning. He meets with the base commander. This guy grills Cecil Tenney. What did you see? What was it that you saw? Describe in detail. He is told to sign non-disclosure agreements. Like they really drove it home with this guy. As he's being escorted by military guard out of the facility, he notices that there's 2 military personnel walking toward him with what look like potato sacks on. One guy kind of trips and falls, and this potato sack falls off his shoulder. And according to Cecil Tenney, it looked like there were human body parts inside. Now, he could not be sure. He didn't know for sure, but it looked like there were human body parts inside. It could be associated with the craft that he saw. He could not confirm that. That's just what he saw. So let's go to the full color rendering. Something like this, belching out smoke and fire, like trying to keep itself in the air and airborne. It was struggling to keep itself airborne. So was this one of ours? Do extraterrestrial UFOs from 300 light years away, do they fly around in craft that belch out smoke and fire? Or is there a much more terrestrial explanation for all of this? We need to look at that. Let's see here. Renee Cruz, wow. Awesome cylinder cigar UFO drawing by Rudy. Most excellent. Derek Doherty, lightning smell is ozone. Yes, that is correct. Matt Townsend, awesome job as always with your super detailed crash retrieval cases. Keep up the great work, Michael. Yeah, thanks a lot. You know, this is a lonely road here, and all of the encouragement is absolutely appreciated. Smash that like. Michael deserves it. The moons of Jupiter, great illustrations. Okay, let's continue on here. All right. So what we want to ask again, what do these ETs look like, right? So Leonard got information from medical doctors. He got access to the pathologist reports. He got access to the X-ray technician reports, and he started putting all these bullet items together on what these ETs look like based on the medical personnel. So let's break this down here. What do they look like? 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, 2 round almond skin-in eyes without pupils, heavy brow ridge, okay? Large hairless head by human standards, no earlobes, no definitive nose, small slit for a mouth, very thin neck, small torso, wearing a metallic flexible garment. How many times have we heard this? That these ETs wear a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit like dark blue. That keeps popping up so many times. Next one. Arms descend as long and thin, reaching down to the knees. Hands have 4 fingers without thumbs, slight webbing. Short and thin legs, no toes. Skin color beige, tan, brown, tan, pinkish gray. So if we put all this information together that Leonard had compiled from the pathologist reports from medical doctors, we plug all this in. We're going to go to Rudy's drawing, and that you can see here, page 46 and 47 is where you can get the breakdown here. Now, this drawing is not there. We had to create this from the actual pathologist reports, but this is what the medical specialists are telling us what these ETs look like. So you've got the heavy brow ridge, you've got the large head, you've got the emaciated body parts, you've got arms that go down beneath the knees, you've got webbing beneath between the fingers. This is what's reported. So if we take the information from the pathologist reports, we use Rudy's drawing as a guide, I came up with this full color rendering of what these ET bodies look like when they're retrieved by the military and sent to Walter Reed Hospital, other medical facilities for X-ray and pathologist reports. So this is my best attempt on what these ETs look like based on the medical reports. All right, let's continue on. I want to talk about June Crane. Very interesting account. Grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Worked for the United States government between 1942 and 1952. Worked in classified laboratories. Had a Q clearance. Held ET debris at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Stated that by 1952, the U.S. government had been involved in 3 UFO crash retrievals. Spoke to a pilot that stated that he flew in ET bodies and wreckage. So what we want to do is we want to look at and consider the testimony of these reliable. Does this woman look like someone that's lying to us? Why would she lie to us? There's nothing to gain by this. And I want to highlight James Clarkson and his wonderful book, Tell My Story, June Crane, the Air Force and UFOs. This is just another one of these examples where we have a reliable woman. She was involved with the library. I mean, absolutely credible. She worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and she had firsthand encounter with debris, like firsthand. So this is another witness that we should consider. Thank you to James Clarkson for writing this book. All right, let's continue on here. Source, retired Air Force pilot, late 1950s. Now, in this particular case, the actual source was interviewed by Ed Camarack Jr. The primary source claims that he witnessed a 5 to 6 minute film clip. In this film clip, it showed a dish-shaped craft about 60 feet in diameter. 10 feet wide gash was on the upper section of the upper dome. The film continues and shows you the interior. So they cut to another scene where they show you the inside of the upper dome that had a display panel. That was talked about. There was lettering, there were symbols, there were star charts, and that's what Rudy's drawn on the upper right hand. Now, off to the left, there could have been an internal implosion showing you what the propulsion system may have looked like. That might be the drive system. There were 3 bodies recovered about 5 feet tall. They were laying next to the craft on the ground on the hangar. So let's take this drawing. Let's go to a full color rendering, and we'll go to the blow up that shows you the display panel on the inside of the craft itself, and then military 6x6 troop transport moving out this propulsion system. Here's my full color rendering of what this may look like based on the actual testimony within this 5 to 6 minute movie clip. Okay, let's continue on here. Now, I want to talk about another case at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, this time, it's a pilot who flew for Braniff International Airways. Braniff International Airways. That's the key to this here. Let's go to the next slide. This is reference number 53, date 1963. Source is PJ. We have his name. He was a captain in the Navy, and later he flew for Braniff International Airways. Now, he stated that he encountered 2 flying saucers inside a hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. One was 30 feet in diameter and could hold 12. A second craft was seen that could hold 2 people. So here again, we've got a case from a military pilot who saw 2 dish-shaped crafts in a hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is back in 1963. Now let's check in here. Derek, impressive. Gemini Loco, is this film available? I don't know where it is. It could be at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It could be at MacDill Air Force Base. I know for a fact from firsthand testimony by Jack Pickett that there was at one time back in 1967 a classified library at MacDill Air Force Base where they had literally hundreds of 8x10 black and white glossy photographs, and they had motion picture film reels like on the wall and stacked up on racks, like hundreds of them. So if we could get access to that facility, we could probably get some of this information. Beautiful discs. Good morning from Australia. Question, this is from Dubsy. How can we get more defense personnel to come forward knowing they have NDAs? That's a good question. The way we can do this is that we don't want any onesies and twosies. We don't want any lone wolves. What we need is military witnesses that have firsthand knowledge of bodies and craft. We need them to come forward as a united coalition. Then other people will be more likely to come forward, because bottom line is, and we all know that they just a couple of days ago, they axed the UAP disclosure legislation for a second year in a row. So they completely axed it. What it means, obviously, what it means is it's on us now. It is incumbent upon us now to track down these remaining witnesses. The government isn't going to help us. We've been trying the democratic process now for 80 years, and it has completely failed us. So that means it's up to us now. So that's what we want to keep in mind here. Let's see, James Forstall and JFK. Yep, that's another part of this story. Yes. What happened to James Forstall? Why did he have a nervous breakdown? All this going on, 1949 time frame. That's another presentation we're going to do here. Wow, smooth metallic saucers. Did element 115 ever come up? Not that I know of. Phantoms, good morning from Australia. You are a legend to all mankind who have been looking into this. Keep up the great work. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Gemini, I have a black and white clip. Where can I send it to you? You can get it through my Facebook, or you can send it to my email, and that can be done. That's certainly something that can be done. L. Kitmo, the algorithm will bless you one day and give you all the audience you deserve here on YouTube. I'm 100% sure that if you keep it up, brother, I hope you're right. That's fine. But you know what? Even if I don't, I'm going to continue doing these things. This is more than this is a crusade for me. I will go down for the ship if I have to, but I will continue doing these things. All right, let's continue on. I want to credit Magic Eyes Only, my good friend Ryan Wood, Earth's extraterrestrials encounters with extraterrestrial technology. So I want to credit Ryan's book here. In this book on page 217, I've talked about this before. Something came down Santa Rosa, New Mexico, spring 1963. So that's kind of the site picture here. The primary witness was an X-ray technician. She was 24 years old. She was not a registered nurse. She was actually an X-ray lab technician. So she is the primary source. Now, the dispatcher called the doctor, and she was told to join the doctor. So they kind of pile into a 1963 Ford Galaxy ambulance. They drive across town. When they get there, what do they see? Number one, there's 2 squad cars there. This is a little bit off the road in kind of a rough field. There's some shrubbery, there's some bushes, but it's off the pavement. 2 squad cars, there are 2 police officers. She gets out and she looks at these small ET bodies. There were 3 of them. They were about 3.5 feet tall. And her first remark is, where are their parents? Quote, so she felt that they were children, very small, all deceased, all dead. Now, they loaded these ET bodies into the back of the ambulance and then drove that back to the hospital. And I'm going to go to the full color rendering here. This is by Thomas Jane, who helped me put this together. And you can kind of see our X-ray technician here. She's looking at one of the bodies. Now, off to the right, it said in the report, there was some debris there. So not only do we have the bodies, but we have the debris. So they load the bodies back into the back of the ambulance. They go back to the hospital. And it's very interesting. I talked about last time what actually happened. There was an Air Force general that basically said, do not talk about this because the government has a long arm, and the threatening continues from Roswell even up to today. The threatening remarks continue. So Cherry Creek, Nevada, summer 1964, page 243 in Ryan's book. And as you can see, and I've mentioned this before, not a lot going here on Cherry Creek, Nevada. Here is the population in 2012. There's only 72 people there. And what we've got in the report is that there's this copper ore train that's coming around a bend. All of a sudden, they slam on the brakes because there's something blocking the tracks. In fact, the tracks are completely shredded and twisted and mangled. They can't go any further, so they hit the brakes. What do they end up seeing? They see this dish-shaped craft that augured in, that completely broke up all the train tracks. They're mangled and twisted. This thing flips over 180 degrees onto its back. There's a hole breach on the side of the craft. There are 3 female ranchers that saw all this go on. Now, when the train stopped, they skedaddled out of here. That's what's talked about in the report. Also in the report, it states that 2 ET bodies were found near the craft, and then footsteps leading away from the craft were found as well. Now let's go over the bullet items here. The tracks were torn apart and thrown like pretzels. That's the exact quote from the report. The Ely sheriffs was alerted, who informed the Ely Armory to dispatch the local National Guard. The military ordered all the people on the train to board a truck and were driven back to Ely. Military examined the craft and found the bodies of at least 2 little pilots, drawing by Rudy. So let's go to the next slide. This is our full color rendering. This took about 3 weeks to do, multiple iterations, and this is about the best we're going to get. This is by Skylar Stallings. Want to give him credit. And you can see the trains come to a stop. The mangled train tracks are there. We've got the craft tipped over. We've got the ranchers in the foreground. So this is about the theoretical limit of what we could do for this illustration. Now I'm going to go to the next slide. This is Evan Ravencraft did another version of this. It's kind of a different style, but it gives you the idea here. So they slammed on the brakes. They could not go any further. We've got the ranchers in the foreground and then the dish-shaped craft off to the left. And so this thing made physical contact with these train tracks. Now, the way this thing ended is they had to bring in the largest crane in the United States by rail. So they brought this large crane in by rail. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This kind of gives you more of a blow up of what the craft looked like as it was tearing through the ground and ripped up these train tracks. So they bring this large crane up, they bring a cable down, they connect it with lanyards, they loaded it up on 2 trucks and then shipped it out of here. So I'm going to go to the next slide. This gives you an idea of what this thing looked like when they were retrieving this craft with this absolutely massive crane here. Let's check in. AZO 1, crash retrieval are the most important aspect of the UFO topic. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, absolutely, I could not agree more. It is the UFO crash retrievals that will be the vehicle to facilitate disclosure. Anything less than that, it's not going to happen. That's why the crash retrievals are so important to me, because they include everything. It's got everything we need, the bodies, the craft, the debris, the reports, the autopsies, everything is there. Everything is there. We will continue this research effort to completion. We are not going to stop. Researchers all around the world, we're going to continue putting pressure on the government. We're not going to wait for the government to come forward. We're going to overstep them and take a management decision. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it ourselves. All right, next one. U.S. Air Force Museum, Dayton, Ohio, 1965. This is page 93 in Leonard's book, case A11. Now, what you see here is the Air Force Museum. If you have any interest in aircraft, I highly recommend you going here. You can spend an entire day going through all the hangars. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, Let's go to the next slide here. We've got a couple that visited the Air Force Museum back in 1965, according to Leonard's report. Now, they were both looking at this exact V2 rocket display. I'm not talking about a replica. I'm talking about this exact display. So you can go here today, right now, and see this exact V2 rocket display. So you've got the couple there. All of a sudden, the husband bails on the wife, completely bails on her, leaves her stranded looking at this German V2 rocket display, completely leaves her stranded. He starts wandering the back halls of the Air Force Museum. He's going down hallways. He's going through doorways. He's just aimlessly wandering around the back halls of the Air Force Museum. What does he encounter? Absolutely crazy. About a 3.5 foot tall ET wearing a wrinkled Mercury era aluminum colored spacesuit. He had a helmet on, and he had an oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, heavy brow ridge. He was pointing his index finger toward the primary witness. And this guy is shocked within 10 seconds, no doubt about it, within 10 seconds. Now, if you look on the upper left of Rudy's drawing, you can see the wife just standing there by herself. 10 seconds later, all the buzzers and all the switches and all the alarms go off in the Air Force Museum. And you see on Rudy's drawing on the right bottom here, military police are escorting people out of this Air Force Museum. So we believe whatever this thing was, it had escaped its underground containment facility and was wandering the back halls of the Air Force Museum, believe it or not. So let's go to the full color rendering. This is the best I could come up with for my ability, the best I could possibly come up with. So we've got the spacesuit, we've got the helmet, we've got the index finger, our primary witness, we've got off limits. So this is kind of encapsulate what I was envisioning, what this gentleman actually saw here. Let's do a quick check in here. Happy late birthday, Renee. Fun Fantas 1. Awesome. Just came in from a trip and turned on. He met an ET. Cool. Yeah, he met an ET. Mike, awesome report as usual. ID bully that little alien. Yeah, maybe so. Who knows? But he got out of there, and so he was wandering around. Believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy, but again, it's part of the whole narrative here. Okay, now, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1966. Civil servant electrician, page 17, abstract 13. That's the reference for this case. So you've got this guy. He works at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He had a trench coat on. It's at night. He comes home. His son is there. He kind of turns to his son. He reaches in his breast pocket and he says, I got something I want to show you. So he brings out an envelope. In the envelope were multiple pictures. One of them showed this kind of western scene. There were some cacti in the background. There were some mountains, could be Arizona. What it showed was an dead ET corpse being held up by its wrists. There was a man wearing khakis. There was another man wearing kind of a white lab coat technician thing, and they were holding this ET body up, and this guy is shocked about this. His son is absolutely shocked. He knew he was not supposed to take this thing from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The next morning when he got home, they discovered that he stole it, and he was fired on the spot just like that. So that's how serious they take this. I mean, we're not playing with the little people here. This is the big boys. This is the varsity team. These guys don't play around. When you take something like this as physical evidence, now you are on their radar screen, because the way this game is played, they don't care what you know. They care what you can prove. So if you have physical evidence, if you have bodies, if you have debris, if you have hardware, now you're on a completely different radar screen. And that's what happened to this guy. He got fired just right on the spot. So let's go to the rendering that I came up with based on Rudy's drawing. And something like this was brought home one night to his son, and he showed him this. So if there's one, you know there's more than that. They have warehouses full of this. You know they do, because what the government found out long ago is they do not operate on the principle of a single point failure. They absolutely have to have a multi process for all of their assets. They're going to diversify their portfolio. They can't afford a fire or a flood over here. They've got to have things all over so that they have no single point failure. And this is one of these photographs that was brought out by this gentleman. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. California City, summer 1971. Debbie Clayton, page 233. Okay, let's go to the slide here. What did she see? Well, they heard a large boom. They walk out the house. They were only 3 blocks away because they saw some dust come up. They walk over and they see a 5-foot high, 10-foot wide mushroom-shaped craft that came down. One of her brother's friends got his father's camera and walked over to the scene. He starts taking photographs of this whole thing. Within 5 minutes, the military arrives on scene. There's a couple of Jeeps. There's a crane. They watch this whole operation where they have a lanyard. They connect a metal hook to the craft, hoist this thing, and then bring it onto this crane. Now, an officer came out of the truck and told them to get out of here. He threw the camera to the ground, but they saw the whole thing. They were not far enough away. They actually saw the entire retrieval operation. So I'm going to go to the next slide here to give you a full color rendering of what I came up with, just to give you an idea. So there is probably photographs of this thing. It didn't exactly say what happened to the film, but there is photographs of this scene, California City. I believe they took it back to Edwards North Base Complex, where we've heard other craft were taken as well. All right, let's go to the next one. McClellan Air Force Base, California, 1973. Chris Coffey, via test pilot / astronaut Ellison Onizuka, page 153 in the book, case 3. Let's check in here. Let's see here. Richie Gray, if I do that unusual a movie, I'm looking for a red or brunette. I think about for a while. Okay, that's the sport model. Holy cattle mutilations and decapitations. That's damn pickle extraterrestrial. Okay. All right, let's continue on here. Page 153. So if there's anyone who remembers what happened back in January 1986, you should know about this. You should know this man, Ellison Onizuka. All right, so to set this up, there's about 12 pilots that are told to go into this briefing room. You have an Air Force personnel standing in the back of the briefing room with a film projector. The lights go down, and all of a sudden this film clip shows on, and all these guys are looking at the wall here, looking at this movie. And again, here is test pilot Ellison Onizuka before he became an astronaut. Want to make sure that everyone understands that. So here they are in the briefing room. They turn on the projector. What do they see? They see 2 ET bodies on slabs, like during an autopsy. And you have Ellison turning behind thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. He's actually seeing this. Now, when the movie ended, there was no debrief whatsoever. This film has been shopped around to multiple military bases around the country as a means to gauge the reaction of our top military pilots as a trial balloon. So their thought was, let's see if our Air Force pilots can handle this new reality, because if they can't, then the general public can't. That was their thinking here. So this is Ellison Onizuka actually seeing this. Now, let's go to the next slide here. This is my full color rendering with the projector on now, and you can see these bodies in the background screen here. We've got Ellison Onizuka looking back at us, kind of in shock. He can't believe what he's seeing. Now, I want to mention that Leonard Stringfield made contact with the person who contacted Ellison Onizuka. They had plans to do a one-on-one interview where astronaut Ellison Onizuka was going to tell Leonard all about this. Plans were made. 2 weeks prior to this meeting, you all know what happened, right? Ellison Onizuka died in the Challenger explosion on January 28th, 1986. January 28th, 1986. So we were within 2 weeks of getting his testimony, but we lost him. It's so sad. We lost him. I tracked down his widow. I sent her a copy of the sketch by Rudy. I sent her a copy of Leonard's report within his book. I know I got the right address. I know my letter made it there. I never got a response. So I don't know if he never told her or she did not want to reply, but I know I got the right address. So who knows what happened? But this is just another example of a do you think this guy would be lying? No way. Not this guy. Absolutely not. He was smart enough to be an astronaut and a test pilot. Credible witness would not lie about this. And we've got other reports of a very similar film that has been shopped around different Air Force bases to gauge the reaction of top pilots to this new reality. Let's continue on here. Now, 1974, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, page 327 in the book. I really like this one. Let's check in here. Whoa, more smooth, slicker UFOs. That means extraterrestrial aliens have advanced wire soldering technology. Okay. Is it fine? Thought they all died, didn't they? Yes, they all did die. 1983. It was 1986. City L, thank you for the support. Really appreciate it. Good point. Okay, so 1974. We have a new hire that is going to work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. She gives her 2 weeks notice and she goes to a dinner engagement. Now, coincidentally, her new boss is at the same dinner engagement. She already gave her 2 weeks. She's getting ready to start her new job. Her new boss is there, and her boss could kind of sense that she was getting beaten up in a discussion. There was a talk about UFOs, and he could sense that she was really getting beaten up. They were pointing fingers at her. They were mocking her, condescending remarks to this woman. So this guy turns to her and says, "You want to see the real evidence?" So she turns to him and says, "Now?" And the guy says, "Now." So he said, "Why don't you come follow me?" He brought her in his car. They drive to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, this guy had the correct security clearance, and he had a key card. So they walk down this corridor at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's a retinal scanner. He looks inside. He inserts his magnetic key card into the reader. It opens up a door. They go down another hallway corridor to another retinal scanner with a door. He inserts his key card. The door opens up, which leads them into an underground vault or morgue at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He pulls up one of these morgue drawers and out rolls this dead ET corpse, half zippered up in a body bag. She can't believe what she's seeing here. This thing had an oversized head, had oversized eyes, slit for a mouth in a partially zipped up body bag. And she was absolutely shocked to her core, absolutely shocked to her core. I'm going to go to the next slide here. And this is Ephraim Patel. I want to give him credit. You can see this woman's facial expression. I wanted to make sure that we nailed this part of it. She was absolutely shocked. Her whole world view had changed. So you can kind of see what the reasoning was for part of this cover-up. And Richard Dolan had done a great job writing this book after disclosure. The implications of what disclosure is going to mean post-disclosure. Is there going to be riots in the streets? Will there be a cross-section of society that can handle this? What are the implications of disclosure? Well, in this case, she was shocked to her core. So that's talked about in Richard's book. Great job by Richard. So she's shocked. Now, here's the follow-up. When the 2 weeks are up, she reports to work. The office manager told her that her boss died. There was no mention of her boss's death in the local obituary. The guy completely disappeared off the radar screen. He probably got in big trouble, and they may have taken him out. So again, this is the varsity team. These guys don't play around. When you talk about something like this, you're playing with the big boys. And when you read this report in the book, you'll see that this woman was absolutely shocked. Let's go on to the next one. Now, there's been so much talk about the Vatican knowing about UFOs, knowing about ETs. They've got things secreted away inside the Vatican archives in the library. Absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. UFO crash retrieval in Italy, 1933. What you've got here is St. Peter's Basilica, the Vatican. In the book, page 201, it talks about something called the White Book, which is a record of mankind's interaction with ETs over the past 2,000 years. That's talked about within the book by Leonard here, page 201. So here's Rudy's drawing inside the the Vatican Library, the archives here. So what do we have? We have the Pope, obviously. Above here, we've got the disc-shaped craft that they recovered back in 1933. Off to the lower right, we've got a treasure chest with Aztec and Mayan treasures. We've got gold coins all over the ground. I mean, you know they've got treasures there. Off to the right, we've got books. We've got vintage books. We've got scrolls from the Library of Alexandria. Off to the left, we've got this Egyptian sarcophagus. In the background, we've got an Olmec head. You know they've been collecting treasures for thousands of years, and they've got all this at the Vatican here. So let's colorize this thing. Let's make it come alive. And this is what I came up with. Something like this is probably being kept in the Vatican. Absolutely, there's absolutely no question about it that the Vatican has secret files on UFOs. They probably got hardware. They might have a body. They have at least one craft. It's a done deal at this point. All right, let's continue on here. Is any of this true? Well, let's go to Newsweek, August 2nd, 2023. This is very current here. Pressure on Vatican to reveal archives after UFO cover-up claims. Okay, it follows claims made by David Grush, a U.S. Air Force veteran who previously worked at the National Reconnaissance Office on UFOs, in an interview in June that an unidentified aerial phenomenon UAP was recovered from Magenta, a town near Milan in 1933, before becoming a U.S. possession with the help of the Papal State. Grush alleged that then Pope Pius XII had quote-unquote back-channeled knowledge of the UFO to the U.S., which ended up scooping it from them. Newsweek, August 2nd, 2023. So David Grush talked about this in his testimony. This is in this report here. And so we want to highlight that absolutely the Vatican is involved in this. They know about this. Okay, now I want to take you to Steven Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We'll do a quick check-in here. Renee, oh, neat, the Vatican UFO. Dubsy, maybe 50 years ago, people might have been shocked about reality alien beings. 2024, most people accept the reality, I think. Yeah, that's true. Because of this slow drip acclimation process, right? Over the last 80 years, we've been getting accustomed to this reality, right? TVs, movies, newspapers, magazine articles, blitzing everything with ETs. If this was the plan, then yes, they have acclimated the public. Let's go on. So are you going to bring it out for the world to see and understand? I hope so. Drip, drip, drip. Yes. Oh my God, that Vatican illustration with the color gold is totally awesome. I hope so. Put a lot of time into it. Okay, let's go back to Steven Spielberg here. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I'm sure most of you have seen this movie when it came out. Very good movie. Now, try to remember back. How did this movie begin? What was the beginning scene in this movie, right? The beginning of the movie here, the movie begins in an abandoned Mexican airfield when a team of researchers discovers 5 perfectly preserved TBM Avenger aircraft that went missing on December 5th, 1945, the famous Flight 19, right? That's how the movie begins. I want to mention that this is not how Steven Spielberg wanted the movie to start, okay? So you've got these TBM Avengers. They're in this Mexican airfield. They got the wind machines going on. It's hard to hear, but they find these TBMs in perfect condition, and this is how the movie starts. Again, this is not how Steven Spielberg actually wanted the movie to start. He wanted the TBM Avengers to be found in the Amazon jungle with all this foliage and trees and all this, covered up aircraft, and these things were set down in perfectly pristine condition. This is how he wanted the movie to start. However, there were cost overruns. They had to worry about rain and spiders and snakes and animals. It would have cost probably $1.2 million to fly a crew all the way over there. So he did the best he could with what he had, and he did it in this Mexican airfield. But I wanted to go back and see if we could get even the slightest hint of how this movie was supposed to start. And here's Rudy's drawing, which shows you this Olmec head. We've got an Aztec pyramid in the background. We've got the TBM Avengers that are in perfect condition. And let's go to the full color rendering here. And here's what I came up with. Something like this is kind of how Steven Spielberg wanted the movie to start here. It would have been great, but it would have cost another $1.2 million. So you could see they just did the best they could. All right, now let's continue on here. Want to take you back to a case I talked about previously. We want to revisit this again. This is by Mark McCandlish. I want to give him credit. He had talked with an engineer who worked at Northrop at Air Force Plant 42. Not too far from the Northrop facility where they rolled out the B-2 on November 22nd, 1988, is Lockheed's Plant 10. And what you can see here is Plant 10. This event took place back in 1992. Now, this Northrop engineer was taking a smoke break, and there was some smog in the sky, so the whole area was kind of backlit. And what he said he saw, very interesting. There was a group of boom lift cranes that came out that trottled out this hangar. Connected to the top of the boom lift cranes was a tarp. So there was a little bit of a kind of a little bit of a droop here connecting the next one. And all around it, it formed this perimeter screen. A gentleman in the center flashed a green light 3 times, and then this 120-foot diameter contact dish-shaped craft hovers and lands in the middle of this perimeter screen. And then the whole group trundles back into the hangar. That is according to the witness that Mark McCandlish had talked about. So that's the scene. This is Rudy's drawing. Now I want to go to the full color rendering that I came up with based on the eyewitness testimony. And this is what I came up with. This has been going on here. They have absolutely made the breakthrough. At the very least, October 1954. They've been pumping billions of dollars into these classified black budget programs that have no congressional oversight, that have no public scrutiny. I've done an entire research effort on all of the newspaper clippings from the 1950s that talk about all these defense contractors. Martin was involved. Bell Aircraft was involved. Sperry Rand Corporation was involved. We have William Lear, John Lear's father, being involved in this as well. So when you put all this together, they've made the breakthrough. There's no doubt about it. They have made the breakthrough. Let's check in here. Mike, glad to stumble to your channel. Keep up the good work. People say it was just shooting stars, the Jaws movie scene in the ocean that was accidentally filmed live at the time. Anti-gravity would revolutionize global transportation, and they hide it. Yeah, that's true. V-Sign, beautiful rendering, full-colored pictures. Michael, thanks for your work. Thank you. Fix N. Kev, please come back to Colorado and present at the Colorado MUFON monthly meeting. The last one was awesome. No problem, will do. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I will continue doing these presentations. I will not stop. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to land this plane. We will continue this research and follow it through to completion. We have to. It's our legacy. This is the final curtain call on crash retrievals. It's up to us to find these people. We need to come together as a coalition of like-minded researchers to track down, get these witnesses to come forward for open congressional hearings. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I want to thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one.